Now, moving on to one of my favorite episodes this week is Laila. Oh my gosh. This episode, y'all, I have to admit, it made me tear up. It is just a lot because, like Laila, I too grew up with corporal punishment, a lot of trauma, and that sort of thing. And it's this big thing, especially in the African American community, where we say, but you were successful. Look, you're Dr. J and Dr. K. So the spankings, the switches, the extension cords, in my case, all of those different things had to have worked. So first and foremost, little recap. They began with Aunt Via's sister from The Fresh Prince, Grandma Rhonda. It's basically in a sense kind of chastised Brooke and saying, what is going on with Laila? Why isn't she fixed yet? Does she have life skills? I need to know a timeline.
Brooke. Not Dr. Brooke, not Dr. Taylor, Brooke. Okay.
So she's very familiar, and Brooke, rightfully so, takes her outside and like, can I talk to you for a minute? Like, you're not gonna do this in front of this child. And she was
you notice how the conversation wasn't really private? That she left the door open so Laila could hear.
Yeah, she basically said, your granddaughter is brilliant. In a sense, she's grown.
Yeah,
and she is letting her know. And I agree with Brooke. Laila is very intelligent, very capable. Mm-hmm. So in terms of life skills, in terms of academics and intellectualism, she has that. Mm-hmm. I think the main thing that Brooke is trying to help her with is the emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. And a lot of her, it seems to me, keep in mind, I'm not the therapist, but it seemed to me that her corporal punishment may have stagnated her emotional growth as a person, because she's not really seeing herself as a person who's an adult. And to my understanding, I feel like the fact that she doesn't have so much say-so in controlling her life is the reason why she wants to be in this relationship with her 15-year-old girlfriend, because she wants sort of control. Matter of fact, she goes into this fantastical space once again about how they're going to escape, and they're going to go to Central America, and they have all this plans of running away. And Brooke said, well, did you talk to Cara about it? And she was like, do I have to? And I'm like, yeah, you're talking about taking a minor across out the country, and you think this is just gonna go, just great. So we know this is going to go badly. I like Brooke. I think she knows that this is never gonna happen. I think this is just fantasy.
I don't know.
But the real part that I would say made me tear up, Laila is an intelligent young lady who is consuming a lot of the trauma that is taking place from a systemic standpoint when it comes to seeing young people having their life snuffed out. She mentions Trayvon, she mentions so many, and it just making me think of she's not a millennial. I was corrected by someone online the other day. She's a Zoomer. Mm-hmm. And so as a Zoomer, you look at like the fact that she is looking at and witnessing all this Black death in the media. And she looks at the violence inflicted from an external standpoint against the Black body. So she's frightened. But also she looks at the trauma that is internal within the family, because in the African American community, for many of us who receive corporal punishment, we're told that our parents or our loved ones are going to beat us so that the police won't beat us. So in a sense, they, in a weird sense, we have internalized that we have to inflict violence to let our kid prepare us for a world that's going to inflict violence. And it's been something that has stemmed since the first African stepped on American soil. And so she talks about, how her grandma would beat her for any mistake. And she talks about the price of success, that even if you are a successful Black man, Black woman, that you pay the price through trauma. And for me, it just makes me cry out. It reminds me, and like I said before, I am an English professor. It reminds me of the story I read about the iconic professor and cultural critic Houston Baker, when he said at a young age that he was dancing around the fire his father made at 7, and he just got mesmerized in this sort of ritual, and it made him break into dance. And then all of a sudden he started singing around the fire that his father was creating. And he said all of a sudden he felt this force strike him in the chest when he got pummeled into the wall, because his father said, "Don't sing like a sissy." And he says that he has since then, it pushed him into hard work and all of that. But all of this is inflicted by trauma. So I guess talking with you, Kay, will you explain to the viewers like how, despite being quote unquote successful as an African American, how we still suffer with trauma?
Well, I think, again, and it's good you use the air quote for success, because that's relative. What does that look like? So for Rhonda, grandma?
Yeah, Rhonda.
So for grandma, like, she's like, F that stuff. Like, anybody care about your feelings? F your feelings. Mm-hmm. You're in school, you gotten everywhere. Why aren't you filling up?
I didn't get a chance to go to college.
Right. And so for her, it's by all means necessary. If I got to beat you down, if I got to fly and meet you at the other place to bring your tail back, and I love that Brooke asked her, well, did she ever ask why you left? For a kid to get on a train and go all the way to a different place.
Seattle, yeah.
For a 5-year-old to get her stuff, like, I'm going down the street to find my mama. And, so I think we learn to stuff all those feelings. We learn to stuff those feelings so you can go through the motions. You can be like a robot. You can be like the Tin Man and make stuff happen. But your heart, your thoughts, feelings, all that stuff gets stunted in that place that says, stop it. You ain't got time for that. And so I think you can, if this is both and, but I don't think people really have success. I think they produce, they make stuff happen. But I mean, Laila's a perfect example of that. And some of her storyline, as you were talking, I was like, I don't know if that makes sense, because she does lack an emotional intelligence, but then she has the space that she holds for the community, and that's emotional intelligence. This isn't right, this isn't fair, that kind of thing. So I don't know if all of that would be stuffed in one person to the level that it is, but it is very possible for us to produce, make things happen, and still not deal with the underlying issues of what's going on. We're just putting Band-Aids on things.
It just made me hurt for her. And, I found myself tearing up, because I'm like, as a father of young people, who are Zoomers, I'm like, these kids are dealing with so much. And it's not that we from Generation Z didn't have a lot to deal with, but it's so much in your face. We're having videos, because in our generation, we didn't have, it was just the stories. We heard it from the hip hop song. Yeah. And we dealt with the pain in the family. And now, as a person now that's really realizing that, I personally traumatized like my own children in the sense of this whole idea of corporal punishment. We see the results. A lot of people say, well, I made it, I'm okay. But You have drinking problems. You have, sexual issues. It's other ways that trauma is going to play out. In Laila's case, it's through cutting. Mm-hmm. We find that she feels like she needs some sort of pain to regulate. It's the car accidents. It's the signs that she says that she wants to look over the cliff because she knows she has that desire, in a sense, to want to kill herself, to let go. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about this is okay because spankings were passed down, I dealt with it so my kids can deal with it. These things take a toll. And at some point, especially I want to say in African American communities, we're going to have to figure out just the ways that helped us to survive are not often what's going to help us to thrive. Mm-hmm. So, that was a very special episode for me.